They say it's not what you gather, but what you scatter that tells the kind of life you've lived. And although I've been struggling to name it or put a label on it, it appears apparent that whatever it was that my friend Jennifer was scattering, it was pretty potent stuff. Rick asked me to share some thoughts about Josh and Jennifer and the couple. And since I'm the one that first introduced them 15 years ago, and ironically, who spent their last weekend with them on this earth, I'll do my best. Jennifer and I became friends while working together at a spree in the mid-80s. After a few years, I seized an opportunity to go work for the Lazars at Seabrook Hosiery to oversee the dancing side of their business. In 1992, I succumbed to a serious case of wanderlust and headed off to the South Pacific indefinitely. But before my departure, it was imperative that I find someone competent to take the reins of the dancing business, so I was confident that Jennifer was a shoo-in for the job. So I set up an interview with Josh and Jennifer, and the rest, as they say, is history. Those of us who knew and loved them can attest that Josh and Jennifer's personalities were markedly different. But they shared many common interests, and more importantly, common values. They both loved and appreciated nature and the outdoors, and willingly participated in several physical activities that tie into that. In the early years, it was sailing and skiing, and in more recent years, cycling, cross-country skiing, snowshoeing. They would regularly head up north to Josh's place at Avery, fill their lungs with fresh air by day, and fill their tummies with delectable food and wine at nightfall. Everyone who knows Jen knows that her passion for good food was a big part of who she was. She'd often giggle and ask, "Do you think it's normal that the first thing I think about when I wake up each morning is what I'm going to eat for dinner?" I just reassured her of how grateful I was to be the lucky benefactor of her love for good food and drink. Even in the kitchen, Josh and Jen were a good pair. Jen was clearly the chef. Josh was the sous chef and busboy, always seemingly happy to clean up as a gesture of thanks for another wonderful meal. At breakfast time, it was Josh who spoiled his guests with his delectable buckwheat blueberry pancakes, and for those who were game, his high-octane coffee. When all was said and done, Josh and Jen were really good friends. They were enriched by celebrating each other's holidays according to their respective cultures and traditions. Josh's father, Wolf, admired and adored Jen for her strong will and strong work ethic. But she found the key to his heart with her outstanding matzo ball soup, which he assured her was the best there was. Indeed, Josh and Jen shared a deep sense of loyalty and commitment to their families. During our last weekend together, the three of us discussed how much our children have to teach us, and how, through the process of parenting, we become better people for it. But we dare not overlook one family member that loved them both unconditionally, and that was the Portuguese water dog, Basil. Named after Jennifer's grandfather, who was a gourmet chef long before it was fashionable. On Canada Day weekend, Jen and I had hoped that Basil could make a trip to Ontario in Josh's plane. But little did we know when Josh said it was a small two-seater that he wasn't exaggerating. There was barely room for the two of them and one small carry-on. And thankfully, Basil and Derek had each other as they moved forward under the conditions of the new normal. We enjoyed an absolutely perfect weekend together. We went to one of my girlfriends who lives in my neighborhood in St. Thomas, where a full-fledged Canada Day celebration was taking place. Canadian flags were strewn about, and coincidentally, nearly all the guests were dressed in red and white, except for Josh and Jen. And as she looked around at everyone else and became aware of how they stood out from the rest of the crowd, she chuckled again and said, "Oh yeah, I forgot we were coming to Canada for Canada Day." Jen was proud of herself for daring to step outside of her comfort zone by agreeing to fly with Josh. She'd been quite nervous on the initial leg of the journey, but specifically before they left that morning, she was feeling much more at ease. The sky was clear and blue, and she was impressed with Josh's thoroughness when it came to reviewing the pre-flight checklist. So my mom, my sons Jesse and Sam and I waved goodbye to them with big smiles on their faces, and that's how I choose to remember them as they now soar with the angels. Unfortunately, we've had more than our fair share of losses in my family, having lost someone from each generation, which leaves 4 empty chairs at our table on family get-togethers. So I've become quite good at learning how to look for the silver lining when the darkest of clouds are looming. I came across a passage by Charles Dickens in Great Expectations. Suffering has been stronger than all other teaching. I've been bent and broken, but, I hope, into a better shape. For those of us who live on, and as I shared at Josh's service, we must live life while there's life to live, and give love while there's love to give. And that's what Jennifer would have wanted. Thank you.